Hello everyone, my name is PolishLynx. Welcome back to Everlasting Summer, and our choice, after heavy thinking, will be to actually not hit the apple. Maybe it was there, I don't know, I could... Yeah, I could check it on the video, but I didn't. Well, and given that it appeared out of nowhere, maybe. And if not, it still belongs to nurse then, so it would be rude. No, even assuming that this is a normal apple, in case I shouldn't eat unwashed fruits. Just like that, I found a reason for my fear and put the apple away. It was time to go for dinner. Along the way I ran into electronic. How is it going? Did you find Sharik? No, still no sign of him. Don't worry, we'll find him. I tried to cheer him up. Too much time has passed. I'll just keep on searching. What about dinner? No, finding Sharik is more important, he muttered thoughtfully. I left him at the crossroads and wished him good luck. Pioneers crowded in the doorway. I quickened my pace, trying not to be the last one in line, at least for today. But you were, and I was lucky. In the far corner was an absolutely empty table. I took my dinner quickly and sat at the table. Tonight's dinner consisted of fruit soup and a par of buns, which had surprised me at first, but the taste was actually nice. I concentrated on eating. Lena, let's go here! Look! 3 treasures! Lena and Miku stood in front of me. Are these taken? Wondered Lena. No, take a seat. Of course, I wish you were alone. Thank you. As soon as Lena said that, Xenia jumped out from behind her back. I'll sit here, there are no places left, she said, putting her tray on the table and sitting down, not even waiting for my answer. Sure, make yourself at home, I muttered sorrowfully. What? Nothing. To tell the truth, I wanted to reduce the whole company to just Lena, for neither Miku nor Xenia were causing much trouble. Except one was too talkative and the other was too arrogant. Miku is awesome. But nevertheless, they were absolutely harmless, especially compared to some others I could name. Oh, seems like I forgot my key. Don't worry, take mine. I was surprised by Miku's short reply. Do you live together? Of course, didn't you know? Together, our cabin is the rearmost. I mean the farthest from here. I mean the last one. I wouldn't have been surprised if somebody told me that Lena lived with Slavia, or with Xenia at worst, even electronic. But silent and shy Lena and excessively talkative Miku as a pair, well, actually that might work. That's really a surprise. Did you find Sharik? It's strange that Xenia is disturbed by someone's problems. No. Surely he's at the village buying cigarettes. Or vodka! She snorted. Village? At that moment, the conversation got much more interesting. Got a problem with villages? Xenia looked amazed. You mean there's a village nearby? I think so, she said absently. I looked at Lena and Miku, but they were busy with their meals and did not pay attention to our conversation. You mean you don't know exactly? Why should I care? Xenia stared at her dish. But there must be something nearby. Listen. Listening. I don't know. Will you let me eat? Seems like I won't get anything from her. For there's a chance that she really doesn't know. The remaining time was spent listening to Miku talking about some nonsense. I was just going slowly mad in silence. Obviously, the first thing I did after getting out after that was inhale a great breath of fresh air. The sun was setting. I decided to take a walk. It's highly unlikely that I will find anything more exciting to do for the rest of the evening. That way something interesting could arise quite unexpectedly. I was approaching the square when I heard a loud bang. It seemed like something had exploded. I was paralyzed. I am in a hostile environment, not knowing the rules and laws of this place. It would be better for me to run. But at the same time I was curious. Probably I would have just kept standing there, but somebody grabbed my hand. It was Olga Dmitrievna. Why are you standing here? Let's go and see what happened. Can't you even manage without me? Ever, man. I begged her pitifully. It shouldn't be anything serious. I hope. When we came to the square, there was already a crowd of pioneers. Wait, is he on fire? Olga Dmitrievna vigorously pushed through the crowd and approached the crime scene. Obviously, someone had tried to blow up Jenda, but the attackers failed. The movement was still standing upright. There were only dim ash traces on the pedestal. Well, who did this? She looked over the crowd of pioneers. Surely it wasn't done by an organized terrorist organization. These guys all came here just to look at what happened. I noticed Uliana and Alisa in the crowd. And it looks like our camp leader noticed them too. You two, come here! I approached reluctantly. Why always me? If you think so. Show me your hands, Dvachevskaya! What's wrong with them? I looked closer and saw they were smeared with black. Now it's clear. What did you make a bomb with? The junior terrorists seemed to hesitate over whether or not to confess, but then blurted out proudly. Activated carbon, saltpeter, and sulfur. Why exactly the movement? What did this honored man ever do to you? The fighter for the rights of... Besides, he gave me activated carbon. She pointed at me with her finger. The whole square stared at me. Thoughts about the pointlessness of this act due to the small bomb size left at me at that very moment. She stole it. I did nothing. Even if he gave it to you, I'm sure that Semyon would never take part in such disgusting antisocial act. Thank you. Yeah, exactly. I agreed. I could hardly imagine how long she would have kept on scolding Alisa if Electronic hadn't popped out at the very moment shouting. I found it! I found it! Everyone turned towards him. He held a boot in his hand. Here! Electronic boastfully shook it over his head. It's Shurik's book! Boot! Oh, calm down. Tell us in detail where you found it. In the forest. On the way to the old camp! Whispers ran among the pioneers. Old camp. The old camp. Are you sure? Absolutely! What's so special about this old camp? I joined in the conversation. It's nothing special, really. She stammered. One of the Sovyonok legends tells the story of young camp leader's girls living there. She fell in love with a pioneer, but he rejected her, and so she killed herself. She committed Hara-kiri with a kitchen knife. Next day, that boy was hit by a bus. Liana ran out of the crowd. Bus. I refrained from asking about the road number. But science does not acknowledge the existence of ghosts, so we have nothing to be afraid of. Anyway, somebody should go there. Suddenly the crowd started to thin out. Olga Dmitrievna, it's almost night. Maybe tomorrow. I turned around and saw Slavia and Lena. What if at night something happens to him? No, today, right now. By the way, where is this place? Electronic roughly described to me the directions, told me the story of the old camp. The camp leader looked at me attentively. If you think that You're the only man here. I look around the area. Well, I would actually go without hesitation, but I can't believe... Oh, I'm the only man here. I can't believe she said that. Okay. Of course. Electronic was quick to flee. I still didn't want to walk in the woods alone. You sure? I think... If you ask me, I would... Go with Alisa, go with Slavia, go with Uliana, go with Lena. Go alone. Hey. Hey. Well, I would go alone, but is it a good idea? Let's do something like that. Some cheatsy doodles. Go alone. Am I going there alone? Olga Dmitrievna looked thoughtful. Perhaps you're right. We'll go together tomorrow morning. We stood in silence for some time, then dispersed around the camp. Everybody seemingly forgot about Alisa and her terrorist act, maybe due to the minor damage it caused. Together with the camp leader, I went towards our cabin. I tried to think of why Shurik would go to the old camp. He is interested in robots and cybernetics, not scary stories and ghosts. What does that boot have to do with that? I remember how I decided to wait until something extraordinary would happen. And then I realized, this is it! Olga Dmitrievna, I think I will take a walk before bed. Just not a long one. Okay. When I reached the square, I understood that hanging around in the forest or some other strange place may not be that scary, but doing so in the dark. I didn't want to return to Olga Dmitrievna's cabin, but I had to find a flashlight, and he's still burning. For instance, there was one in the infirmary. I was glad I didn't spend my whole time reading the fashion magazine. The flashlight was found quickly, and in a few minutes I was again standing in that square, pulling myself together. I just had to make the final decision before I entered the forest. Moving past the pioneers' cabins down the forest path towards the abandoned camp, I set forth. Electronic told me that the old building was built immediately after the war. It looked like a kindergarten, or like a barracks I expected, and definitely could hold fewer pioneers than today's camp. It had been abandoned for about 20 years. It was now totally dark. The forest looked totally different at night. Mysterious shadows were hiding behind the trees, strange lasting and the cries of night birds coming from everywhere, branches treacherously snapping under my feet. The full moon was shining, so I decided to save the battery in the flashlight. I'm sure I will need it sometime soon. The further I moved, the more unpleasant thoughts came into my head. I wasn't afraid of the dark at all. I didn't believe in ghosts and other mystical crap, but at the same time, during the last few days, I'd encountered so many incomprehensible phenomena that against my own will I started to read between the lines of the simplest things. Obviously, I felt exceptionally uneasy in the forest at night. Everywhere I looked, every shadow, every tree or bush looked like weird creatures escaping straight from horror movies or from Stephen King novels. A branch seemed to be someone's hand eager to grab your shoulder, a fallen log, someone's dead body, someone who failed to get out of the forest. In every gully I saw a bottomless abyss. If I had found myself in this forest under any other circumstances, without all these buses and pioneer camps, of course, I would still feel uncomfortable, but then I would be able to explain everything with logic and be afraid of nothing except for owls and mice, of course. But at the moment there were more than enough reasons to fear. Despite all this, I reached the old camp without any adventures. Nice one! In a little glade surrounded by trees stood a house resembling a kindergarten. Paint peeled off the walls, almost all the windows were broken masonry, here and there, holes in the roof that looked like those made by a bombing. In front of the building was a little garden surrounded by a rusty fence. Apparently once it was a playground with a merry-go-round, swing slides and other Soviet attractions. But time is cruel. All of them were broken and mutilated by corrosion. The grass was so tall that it almost came up to my waist. The moon looked out from behind the clouds and illuminated the old camp. It seemed like everything came back to life. Windows shone with new glass and walls looked like they'd been painted with fresh paint. I heard playful laughter. Saw translucent children joyfully running and frolicking in the yard. A strict camp leader on the threshold loading a basket with ripe apples in her hands. The old cleaning lady taking a nap in a shade. It sent chills down my spine. Of course my imagination was just playing tricks, but the old camp itself was so similar to all the post-apocalyptic pictures I had seen that these visions were no surprise. I stood undecided for a long time before I dared to go further. After all, I'm here to find Shurik. Though I still don't get what he might be doing here. If he even is here. A boot somewhere nearby doesn't mean anything. However, if he was not eaten by wolves, for some reason it seemed like there were no wolves in this forest, This must be the only place where he might be hiding. I carefully crossed the yard, pushing the tall grass apart and trying not to bump into a jagged piece of metal. But I stopped in the doorway, hesitating, and impenetrable heavy darkness stared back at me from inside. Even the bright moonlight could not illuminate any object, or even highlight a silhouette. My head was filled up with different thoughts that all said that it's better for me not go any further and run away quickly. But I pulled myself together, turned on the flashlight and stepped over the threshold. Inside the building looked like a typical kindergarten. I still remember my childhood days, and so everything here looked very familiar. Sleeping room with lines of beds standing close to each other, a large playroom, toilets, a dining room and utility rooms. Signs of the past children's joy were seen everywhere. From time to time the flashlight drew my attention to a decaying doll, or a plastic toy car, or a punctured rubber ball, or a broken rack of toy soldiers. There was a book on the table, faded with age. I flipped through the few pages. It was a story I had read long time ago, back in my childhood. Getting scary. Let's end the episode here. And I see you in the next one. Bye.